Let's talk about the Canon R3 because this camera sounds more and more interested by the day. Now, we have made a video regarding this camera. A lot of you guys have dropped great valuable information, great thoughts about the camera. So into this video, I want to address some of those comments from you guys. And the most popular was, how is this camera going to compete against the Sony A1? How much is this camera going to cost? What are some of the features? And when is this camera going to be released? So I am going to try to address all these questions and comments. So if you're interested about knowing what's going to happen with the Canon R3, stick around. All the information right after the intro. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Gaston right here, and if you're new to this place, welcome to Gaston Shutters. And let's go back to the Canon R3 because this one is a very interesting camera for many reasons. The first one is that this one is going to be a still camera first with some awesome video specs, just like the Canon R5, but I would say more like the 1DX Mark III with the RF mount. Now, this sparks a lot of questions that was very popular, and people mentioned, well, this one is going to be the flagship of the RF system. And for some of the things that Canon has shared with the press, apparently this one is not going to be the flagship camera. It's going to be something else coming up probably later on. And this is actually really great news, guys, because we were talking about a camera that's going to be powerful, but at the same time, it's not going to have the price of a flagship camera. Like, for example, the Sony A1 that costs $6,500. Let's actually talk about price before we dissect some of the features, because this one was also a very popular comment in the prior video. How is this camera going to compete with a Sony A1 and how much it's going to cost, right? And I think that Canon is in a really good spot right now because they could price this camera whatever they want. They know the features of the Sony A1, and we know that that camera goes for $6,500. On the other side, we have the 1DX Mark III that costs at around $6,500 but uses the EF mount. And this one is the RF camera. They're claiming that it's not going to be the the flagship camera. So Canon can potentially price this camera anything they want, and I'm assuming that this camera should be at around $5,500. I mean, I hope it's less, but $5,500, puts him in a great spot because it's $1,000 less than the Sony A1. And this camera is promising some incredible technology. So let's talk about some of the specs. Well, first of all, this one is going to be the first RF camera with a stacked CMOS sensor backside illuminated. And if you're familiar with this technology, this is actually great news, especially for those that shoot, sport and fast action such as wildlife photography and anything that entails you capturing, boom, quick moment. The backside illuminated stack sensor is going to have a faster readout of the sensor. It's going to perform great in low light, and it's going to have a minimal rolling shutter, something that's going to be very important for someone that shoots, a lot of sports. This camera, like I mentioned before, is going to have a still body, so we are talking about a camera that's going to be similar in design and ergonomics as the 1DX Mark III. So we're going to have the vertical integrated grip with longer battery life. I think everyone is going to appreciate that. And the camera is going to be probably a little bit smaller than the 1DX Mark III. Now, all that is great news, guys, because I wish that the Sony A1 actually was designed already with that integrated grip, but instead, it's the same body that you have to use that adapter, battery grip, which makes the camera look pretty funky if you ask me. Canon has gone with this design, and this one is going to be a great call. Now, let's talk about fast burst rate, because the Sony A1 can actually shoot at 30 frames per second, and it is said that the Canon R3 is also going to feature the same 30 frames per second. Now, once again, this is going to be great for the shooting fast action sport, wildlife photography, and now we're talking about direct competitor to the Sony A1 just because of that feature alone. Anyone that's coming from any other camera company that's not Sony or Canon, let's say Nikon, Panasonic, Pentax, whatever the case may be, Fuji, and is looking for a camera that can shoot really fast, now they have two options: the Sony A1 and the Canon R3. And this is the reason why I think that Canon is going to price this camera at least $1,000 less than the Sony A1 just to capture a market share. Because if you haven't committed to any lens, any system, you can basically go with whatever you want. And there's another piece of technology that is going to be very remarkable to see in implementation. Canon actually has file a patent. Most likely we're gonna see it in the R3. I'm gonna post an image right now. But it is talking about the autofocus control using your human eye. And Canon has done this before with the Canon ES3, an SLR camera that you were able to do exactly that. Control the autofocusing point by simply, looking through the rangefinder, viewfinder, and moving the points around. So this technology is going to be the same thing. Basically what it is there is a small image sensor right next to the screen of the EVF. And also the EVF has some LEDs, infrared, that are going to blast your pupil to localize your pupil, track it every time you move it. And that's how you're going to be, selecting your focusing points. It's pretty much how we actually focus in life. We look at something, we move our eye, and, we direct the target to focus where we want. So this is going to be a very human experience. And despite the fact that you're not going to have to fiddle with any joystick or screen rubbing or anything like that, you're going to grab the camera, concentrate in the composition. And in my opinion, that is going to be huge. Of course, if the implementation works as intended. This is going to be great, guys. Now, the camera is going to have video specs, and we know that this camera is going to have some sort of 8K video up to 30p. Now, chances are that Canon probably learned their lesson. The 8K 12-bit internal 422 did not work very well for them. But we may see on this camera maybe 8K video at 10-bit 420, kind of like the one on the Sony A1. Again, it is going to some form of 8K video, but most likely we're not going to have a fan in this camera because, once again, this one is going to be first a still camera. Now, how Canon is going to implement that heat dissipation, it's going to be very interesting to find out. But this is pretty much what we know about the camera. When it comes to port, most likely we are going to have all the, useful ports that we need these days. Hopefully this one is going to come with a full-size HDMI, and hopefully the camera is not going to cost an arm and a leg. I think that $5,500 still a pretty penny for a lot of people, at least for myself. Wish this camera can be less, but knowing where they're going with their pricing, knowing that the Canon R5 goes for $3,800 or maybe $35 right now, they're gonna try to put this camera very close to a higher end camera without being the flagship camera. So let me know in the comments down below, what is your wish list of features that you wish this camera is going to have? Are you excited to have a backside illuminated stack CMOS sensor with the RF mount? Let me know in the comments down below, guys. And until then, I will see you in the next video.